Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man? They say murder three. Strange things that happen here. How stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree?
Welcome to Strange Things, broadcasting from the Arkanasa Radio Studios in Laredo, Texas. And welcome to the show. I'm your host, Chris James. With me today in the studio is Joe Rogerio, a longtime paranormal investigator. He's been on the show before, talking about various encounters he's had. Tonight we're going to be talking about something that we don't have a whole lot of here in the Laredo area, and that is cryptids. I've had people ask in the past why Bigfoot is never seen in the Laredo area, and well, if you were a large hair-covered creature, I don't think you'd want to hang around in this hot climate either. So Joe, how about telling the audience a little something about yourself?
All right. Well, salutations to everyone. Thank you, Chris, for having me again on the show. I love the show. I love the people that you have on. It's very interesting. It's exciting to hear other people who have these interests in the cryptozoology, and especially like Bigfoot and UFOs. I've been doing paranormal research for over a decade already. My interests it all started, I believe it was in 1976, when I picked up my first copy of UFO magazine. After that, I was sold, and my eyes were glued to the sky. I got stuck with astronomy and all these mysteries of the world and of the unknown and lost cities and ancient cities.
The UFO magazine, did you get the one that was still in color, or did you get it when it went over to black and white?
It was only the front and back page was color, and the pages were black and white.
What had happened was the original magazine was all color. It was all glossy and high speed and cost way too much to print.
Uh-huh.
Well, the owner was extremely upset because the magazine cost more to print than he was making. And he was talking to Bill Burns one day. And he said if somebody would offer me $1, I would sell this darn magazine to him. And Bill Burns handed him $1. And he took over UFO magazine from then on. And him and his wife ran it. The first thing they did was they got rid of all the color photos and they turned it over to just black and white. But it was more based on content than bling. And I still had several copies of the original color magazines, but I have no idea where they're at.
Yeah, mine were the front covers were color and had these ads about will you still be alive in 1982. Also the Patty Hearst story, all these cool ads. But yes, I've been hooked to these flying objects ever since.
When did you first hear about the Laredo incident?
First time I heard that, I believe I was back in the early 90s. I was working as a ramp agent, ticket agent for American Airlines. And my interest in UFOs was there, and I remember visiting, as being an employee of an airline, we had the opportunity to visit the air traffic control tower. But we would have to make a reservation and talk to the ATC guy, and he'll tell us when we can go up there and sit down and look at the traffic and just pair of binoculars. So I meet this guy and this air traffic controller, and we start talking about UFOs, and he was a believer, and right after that, we became friends, and He mentioned to me about the Laredo incident, and then later on, I heard a presentation by one of other researchers, UFO researchers, Noif Torres, and
Mm-hmm.
he went to more deeper detail on how it occurred. So it was very interesting, and also it happened 1 year after the Roswell crash in '47.
Mm-hmm.
Same date, same everything. So it's interesting.
Yes. I talked about the Laredo incident on the show in the past, but I couldn't say exactly when. But if anybody
Hmm.
out there doesn't know what we're talking about, you can find it simply by searching Strange Things with Chris James and Laredo Incident. Or you can pick up a copy of a book by Noe Torres called Fallen Angel. The reason the name Fallen Angel was used is that's military speak for a UFO crash. So, good book. I've got a copy of it around here somewhere
Hmm.
in this vast library of mine. When did you first start looking into cryptids, Bigfoot things?
Well, that was in my youth. I remember watching these programs on TV back. I was, laying I was on the floor watching, the black and white 19-inch console TV that we
Mm.
had. Uh, saw the episodes of where Loch Nessie would come out of the water. Uh, One in particular, when a boat was going down across the lake and hit something, and they said it was a Nessie. Also, the now I remember watching the Planet of the Apes and all this, and that was like, well, that's just the movies. But when I ran across the footage and I was watching these clips on TV, oh my gosh, this is real.
Mm.
Monsters are real. So I had a very, I was very curious about, who are they? What are they? So I started, doing research of supposedly back in I don't know, thousands of years there was an ancestor or another bipedal creature. It's
The Gigantopithecus.
yes, exactly, and he was it was a big fella,
Mm-hmm.
and I wouldn't I didn't doubt that there was maybe his relatives were around that hadn't been discovered yet. So that was a big interest to me. That you
That's
know,
what sparked your interest in the first place.
mm-hmm.
Now, when was it you said you were coming back from Corpus one night and you had an encounter with something you couldn't explain?
Yes, I remember that was. I believe it was. Let me see. It was with a 2000. 2006 or 2007. I was coming back from Corpus Christi, late, early morning. It was like around two or no. I take it back. It was 2. When I got by where this creature was, it was maybe like around 4. I was driving, on my truck,
59?
Highway 59. That's right, from Freer to Laredo, and I had my, when there's no traffic ahead of me, I drive with my brights. So, and all the time. So I remember I was driving, and when I was coming to this point where I saw some does off the side of the road, they weren't. They were on the other side of the property fence, not too far, like very close, like I'd say maybe 15 feet around there. So I saw these 2 does. They were grazing, and what I did notice that was very peculiar is that there was this. Uh, when I first saw it, I said, "Who's this? What's this dude? A person?" And I looked at it, but it was all like, very quick. And I remember the body. I remember the legs, but it was just like standing. And I believe it did. It had some kind of, on the body was dark,
Mm-hmm.
like if it had like hair or something, but it was standing upright. And I know what I saw, and I wanted to just confirm to see what was that, what I just passed up. So, I was thinking, this is my chance. So I turn around and I drive back to the general area, and I go real slowly. And I'm looking, and sometimes I would point the vehicle, to the side of the road to see if I see anything. And then all of a sudden, like, being an investigator, that's like, I think the second most scariest moment that I've had in my life.
Mm.
I had a fear overcome my body, overcome everything.
It just came out of nowhere.
Yes, it gradually just grew, but when you get this fear, there's like a scare, like,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe did I leave my door open, my truck door open? They're gonna steal and this and that. No, this is the fear that it sinks in you and it sinks inside your chest.
Mm-hmm.
That type, and you start worrying. It's like if you're being hunted, like if you're being targeted, like you're like if you're the prey. That type of,
Mm-hmm.
that your life is in peril. So when I realized this, I was like, oh my gosh, and then I started thinking, if this creature is nearby me, he can sprint. And I started thinking he can sprint and jump in the window or jump on top of my truck.
Mm-hmm.
So I just slowly, like, I not slowly, but I look around. There's no cars coming, so I make this wide turn to make a U-turn. And it was like an eternity. And once I made the whole complete turn, I remember hearing the gravel turning, and I had to look both ways, just in case there was a car coming, and once I made the whole complete turn, I saw from 10, 20, 30 miles an hour, and I was still, I wasn't content until like I was like maybe 70 miles an hour, and at that point I was thinking, I even had the cabin light
Mm-hmm.
to the back, and I was looking because I don't know, I just had this overwhelm. I was overwhelmed with fear and terror.
I was talking to J.V. Johnson on Beyond Reality Radio a couple of months ago, and he asked if there was a possibility, could this have been a dog man instead of a Sasquatch? The idea is that a lot of people that have had dogman encounters have said that they felt an overwhelming fear. But a lot of people, when they've had Bigfoot sightings, it's always been scary, but not that paralyzing effect.
It may have. At this point, I wouldn't doubt it. The fright was just, it was off the charts.
Mm-hmm.
It was like if you were having a one of those. Sometimes, like, people describe themselves, they have these. They wake up and they can't move. Those night terrors.
Night paralysis.
Yes, and they get real scared. Well, I can compare it to that.
Mm-hmm.
The image that I saw was, it did have a humanoid body. The top of the head, it was too dark and too fast when I passed it up to think.
You drew a picture of it, and in the photo, the drawing, you said it was about how tall?
Maybe like around 7 feet.
And this was based on the fact that a barbed wire fence to the top is about 4.5 feet tall.
Something like that, similar.
So the creature would have been about 7 feet tall. So it reminds me of Craig Woolheater's sighting when he was driving through Arkansas. And it's one of those deals where you see something on the side of the road and you have to go back and look.
Mm-hmm.
The major difference with Craig was he didn't go back because his girlfriend absolutely refused to let him turn around. She was all freaked out. It's like, no, we're not going back to see what that was. It might kill us.
That's why women live longer.
It is amazing to have a occurrence like that in your life where you see something, you know you see it.
Yes.
But the back of your mind is trying to convince you that you didn't actually see it because that can't possibly be real.
Now this highway that I had this sighting, this experience. I've been on that highway ever since I was about 2 years old. Driving with my parents, driving from Corpus back to Laredo, commuting back and forth every weekend. My father was employed by the Army Naval Station, the Air Station, Army Depot, and the rest of my family stayed in Laredo to finish school. They don't want to move to Corpus, so mother and dad would come and check on the family every weekend. So we would do that commute and we've seen a whole lot of things. At night we saw some weird things, but Father has even seen a lion off the side of the road one time.
Mountain lion or African?
I believe it was like a cougar mountain lion type. Also, when deer jump in front of vehicles, it happened.
It's weird how mountain lion or an American lion or the Florida puma or, good Lord, there's about a dozen other names for these creatures. It's all the same animal. We call it a mountain lion. Other people call it a cougar, puma.
Panther.
It's all the panther. Yes, American panther. It's all the same creature. So, for those of few people out there that don't know the area that we are referring to, the road, Highway 59, between Freer and Laredo, the tallest tree is, about 12 feet maybe, if you're lucky. Mostly it's mesquite, a few ratama. There is very little brush in the area. For a large creature to hide in this area, it would be very difficult, except in the middle of the night when it's very dark out. Now, at one time, 2012, they were having some reports of a Bigfoot-type creature in and around Lake Findlay, which is also known as Lake Alice. And Alice is about 35 miles to the east of Freer. Possibility that this could be the same creature that they were seeing around the lake. A friend of mine, Gabriel Guerrero, who is I believe he's the founder of the South Texas Bigfoot Investigations. He had come up with a interesting investigative technique that I've never heard anyone else try. He takes a camera, it's like a GoPro, but he mounts it on the back of his utility vest so that it's facing to the back. And then he walks down the trail, and when he gets done, he plays the video back so he can see if there's anything coming up behind him. Interesting investigative technique, but I would hate to discover there had been something following me that I didn't know was back there.
Someone just peering through the brush looking at you.
The reports were so interesting that I actually drove out to Lake Findlay and had a look for myself. And whereas there is a lot of tall trees right around the lake, the surrounding area is mostly just fields, corn. It's all plowed open. Hardly any place for a creature to hide.
Yeah.
Would you consider a Bigfoot type creature as being a flesh and blood animal, or could it be something a little more interesting?
Well, as people have cited this creature, it's it's very possible that it's a warm-blooded, of course, a mammal
Mm-hmm.
living out in that area specifically. I've looked at the creeks, how they branch out,
Mm-hmm.
major and minor branches of these creeks, and they go down all the way like to Laredo. I believe like Zacate. If you follow
Yes.
Zacate, you're gonna keep on going and going, and it goes all the way like to the mid Texas, around the mid area.
Dolores Creek.
Yes, and so you got your water, you got your shade. So if something's out there, it could be utilizing that
Mm-hmm.
as for cover. Now on it appearing. Now, how many times, how many people? We don't have a count.
Mm-mm.
We don't have a perimeter saying, okay, we don't have a number. Okay, in this state of Texas, presently, these people are looking for Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
Nor in any of the states. So, and the numbers are few. Well, still, after all these groups that we have right now, the numbers are still few. But it is possible, like some theories are out there, that it is could be an interdimensional,
Transdimensional.
yes, transdimensional creature.
Mm-hmm.
How this happens, I don't know. Is it possible? I wouldn't, I can't say no, but I'm open for everything. But that sometimes it comes to mind, because if you all these years, all these nobodies, no so and so, but then again, it's have people don't go looking for bodies for
Mm-hmm.
for bears, for grizzly bears and things like that. So
I understand from watching various shows about Bigfoot and other creatures that they have finally found one researcher who stumbled upon a dead bear in the woods. But that's one bear, one researcher after hundreds of years of people being in the woods.
mm-hmm.
So could there be a dead Bigfoot laying out there somewhere and just nobody's stumbled across it? Because when you're in the woods and you smell something dead, you don't want to go near it.
you
The smell is
yes,
atrocious.
I believe that at times chimpanzees are herbivores,
Mm-hmm.
but they're
They'll eat
really
meat, too.
omnivores.
Yes.
And at times, I guess, I don't know how, but I've seen on the TV that they sometimes hunt in packs, and
Mhm.
they go after smaller monkeys.
Yes.
So if this is true, would these Sasquatches do the same thing? Would if I believe that there are fights, there are
Mm-hmm.
territorial,
Oh.
uh,
Ape Canyon.
uh-huh.
The miners had gone into the area. They saw a Sasquatch type creature. One of the miners shot it. I don't know if he hit it or just shot at it, but it upset the rest of the tribe. And that night, a group of Sasquatch attacked the miners inside their cabin. And they pelted the roof with rocks. And the next morning, the miners packed up their gear and they got the heck out of there, never wanting to go back. Ape Canyon is right near Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier. So,
Washington State.
yes. Makes you wonder, why would they name something Ape Canyon if supposedly apes are not here in the U.S.
There we go.
or the Americas?
Yes. Wow. So yes, this creature could be, like you said, transdimensional.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is, well, that's what, keeps it, out of our sight.
Makes you wonder what their purpose in passing back and forth from one dimension to another might be. But since they're not human, we would find it extremely difficult to come up with a logical, rational explanation because we don't think like they would.
Unless, now I'm talking about it, something like out really in left field.
Mm-hmm.
If I was, I don't know, an alien race
Mm-hmm.
that for somehow had these creatures or were able to get these creatures in their possession and have them breed, have a natural birth, but also breed with which are what we're called we're called
Humanoids?
yeah,
Hominids?
hominids.
Hominids?
We're a hominid, but we're a oh my gosh, it's a two words, same word.
Homo sapien.
Homo sapien.
Okay.
So
I wasn't expecting to have scientific terminology coming up in the show. So, okay. So, the possibility of some alien group trying to crossbreed a Bigfoot type creature with a Homo sapiens. Until we actually get one of these creatures and sit down and talk to it, I don't think we will ever quite know what their intentions are. I was up at the Huntsville Bigfoot conference, not this year, but last year in April. And I talked to a gentleman there who was saying that there was a connection in the area around Huntsville where they would have a rash of UFO sightings, followed by several Bigfoot sightings, and then people would go missing. Someone or a group of people would disappear without any trace.
there you go, James.
And he was coming up with a theory that the three might have been connected. Unfortunately, I didn't get the guy's name, so I can't get a hold of him and get more information out of him. It was one of those, he worked for the government and didn't want his name being bandied about by me or anyone I knew. Because in certain jobs, you just don't want a reputation as being somebody that thinks outside the box.
Right.
It can lead to early termination and loss of your retirement. When I worked for the government, I got to the point I didn't care what people thought. And so I was known as that guy.
Yeah.
It's a good thing I never wanted to be promoted because I don't think I would have gotten very high in the food chain. We were talking recently. You had been watching the Paterson Gimlin film.
Oh, yes.
And you had seen something that caught your eye. Would you like to talk about that?
Yes. I remember seeing this film on TV, in my youth, growing up, many times on YouTube. And I noticed something that was just, it didn't jive when the Paterson film was done. It shows the creature, Lucy,
Patty. Named after Paterson.
There we go. She's walking, and at one point after the camera's stable, she's walking. It has to be some kind of game trail because if I'm walking at a steady pace, and I'm, I guess, spooked or something, I don't know if I'm going to be walking in the straight line, or maybe I'm going to be, I'm going to be walking over branches and maybe tripping or something. But the creature, this bipedal creature, is has no problems walking, like, no jumping over holes or over, so it has to be some kind of a game trail or something that was some kind of clearing, or not enough obstruction for her to, do these movements, like, well, here's a stump, well, it's just like if you're walking in the mall, like on a sidewalk.
People that don't walk out in the woods, out in the country, out in the brush, they might not understand that out there in the brush, there is debris everywhere. There are rocks, there are downed limbs, there are trees and things. And you don't walk in a straight line most of the time because you got to go around, you got to maneuver around this stuff.
Right, because the surface could be uneven and, so.
But in the Paterson Gimlin film, the creature, Patty, is walking along a cleared route.
Okay.
It's the edge of a creek bed.
Okay.
So, but it was good thing that there was nothing scattered along the edge of the creek.
Now the creature was walking. I don't believe it was walking casually.
It was in a hurry to get out of there.
It was hurried.
Oh.
You can tell that the way, and just the glance, the way it looks, it's like when some dogs they're gonna attack you, they bark at you and then you shoo them away, and they start walking away, and then they give a turn. They turn their head just to like see if you're doing something. Well,
the reason the Patty turned and looked, and I talked to Bob Gimlin about this, the other man at the scene. Roger had fallen. Well, his horse had been spooked by the creature, and it fell over. And so Roger Paterson had to free himself from under his horse. Then he's in a hurry trying to get the camera out of his saddlebag. So he's pretty wound up by this point. He gets the camera out and he starts running after the creature, trying to film. That's why the film is just all over the place. As he's running, he suddenly gets this thought, here's this huge hair-covered creature. We don't know what its intentions might be. What if it turns and attacks? So Roger Paterson kind of yells over his shoulder to Bob Gimlin, cover me. So Bob pulls a .30-30 rifle out of his scabbard, and he racks around into the chamber. That is the moment that the creature, Patty, turns and looks over the right shoulder back to see what was that noise. Now think about it. If that had been a person in a costume, and they heard somebody just put a round into a .30-30 rifle, it's a very distinctive sound. Don't you think they would have pulled their head down between their shoulders and took off running and yelling, screaming, don't shoot? As opposed to the way Patty turned and looked, it was more like, what was that sound? And then she just casually kept on going.
If anything, if it was a person in an ape suit or something, I think with that cocking of the .30-30, it's like a shotgun. You hear that, whoa, whoa, I think there would have been some kind of quick reaction, like the person would have gotten their knees, like, or put their hand on, like, hey.
Yes.
The universal sign, like, stop. I surrender.
So far, I believe there have been 13 different people have come forward claiming to have been the person in the suit. And yet not a single one of them can really fill in any of the details. Even Hieronymus has changed his story several times in the past years. It was a monkey costume that Roger Paterson had bought, or it was a costume that Roger Paterson had made, or it was something else. And the story just keeps changing as time goes by, but I don't think it was anybody in a costume, simply because when Bob Gimlin put a round in the chamber, if that had been any human, they would have had to clean out the monkey suit later.
That's right.
So you're watching the P&G film.
Yes.
And you were talking about how it turned and looked over its shoulder, and I keep interrupting you.
While it was walking across, on its movement, on its stride, it takes. It has its gait is normal, just like a human being.
Mm-hmm.
But what wasn't happening is that when she would take a step, her front, her right front leg would be forward, and her right arm would be back,
Mm-hmm.
would be behind her, behind her,
Yes.
her butt.
The normal swing of
Yes,
the
yes,
human
yes.
body.
And
Oh.
then, well, you take the other opposite. When you put your foot, your left foot in front of you. Your naturally your right arm swings or
Mm-hmm.
sways back, and well, it doesn't happen here.
Yes. You don't see the right. No, correction. You don't see the left elbow coming back
The palm,
as the left leg is going forward.
right on the right hand side, you can see her hand,
Yes.
you can see her palm, and it passes her behind her butt, and when it switches, the the left palm doesn't pass her pelvis,
Mm-hmm.
and it happens. I don't know how many times. I don't know how many strides, how many steps.
I'm sure there's somebody out there that's saying right now how many steps were in the film.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It will. Now, my question is, why does she do that? Why does it stop? Did it have an injury or something? Why doesn't it make that complete,
Mm-hmm.
swaying motion? Could it be something with in your elbow? I mean, your shoulder, the rotator's cuff or something.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see also that she didn't have anything on her left palm or left hand. I didn't see anything that jumps out at you. I did notice that on the left hand side there was something that was protruding out. Now, it was, when I say protruding, it's like if it was like a fanny pack type, like you obviously, in this person, it's bulging out. Well, this thing that was bulging out was beyond the curvature of the creature's body,
Mm-hmm.
and it was black. And this, brings me to think that, well, if there's a theory that she was carrying a small,
Mm-hmm.
why is it that we have to think that they're gonna hold on like a chimpanzee, like like a baboon? The baboon, what they're on the back.
Yes.
Chimpanzees around, I think, the chest or maybe the back also. Something like I think every monkey and primate have these different types where they're young things on, except the primates. I believe. I think they do. I'm not a professional, but why can't we? Why can't it? I think because of the size, because of the all these obstacles, this debris, or this creature's walking through. If there was a small a Bigfoot, I believe that their strength is very strong,
Mm-hmm.
and they might be holding on to the hair.
Yes.
So if that little bulge or that black thing that was protruding out the head of this small, then wow, it was holding on to the lateral part of the leg, their lap,
As
their side, their hip.
as any creature, a small one, a juvenile creature, would be more curious as to what's going on to the rear than afraid. So while if this were a small Sasquatch, the mother, Patty, is making a beeline to get the heck away from these two creatures on horses. If there had been a juvenile, it would have been looking back, trying to figure out what the heck's going on back there and why is the mother in such a hurry to get out of here. So that would explain this head or this dark shape appearing to the side of the creature. I talked to M.K. Davis. He was a presenter at the Bigfoot conference in Huntsville last year, 2018, not 19. I didn't get to go this year. But in 2018, he was one of the presenters, and he had mentioned that he thought the same thing, that perhaps Patty was carrying a small creature on its left-hand side, and that would explain why you never see the left arm movement like you see the right.
Mm-hmm.
He also said that you deserve some kudos for actually having spotted that. He said a lot of people watch the Paterson Gimlin film and they don't really see what's going on. But to actually watch it and to pick things out like that, that takes some doing. So, MK gave you a thumbs up, as it were.
Awesome. Nice to hear.
If you've ever watched the Paterson Gimlin film, the original, which if you're listening to the show, you've probably seen it. The original footage is very bouncy, jerky.
Yes.
It was like the Blair Witch on steroids. Roger Patterson just almost got killed by his horse. Now he's running through the brush, trying to film with a camera without tripping over anything. So the film is up, down, back, forth, sideways. It's very difficult to actually focus on the creature in the middle of the film because it's not in the middle.
Yes.
M.K. Davis took the original footage and he marked Patty as being the center frame of each image. And then he put it on a computer program that I don't understand these things, but he does. And what it did was it told the computer that every image of Patty was to be the center of the film. So now he has a video that you can watch. It's called the stabilized PNG film. And instead of Patty moving around on the film, the edge of the frame moves around and Patty stays right in the middle of it.
Stationary.
Yes, and it's a lot easier to watch that than the original because there's no movement.
What also points to me that this creature is a valid, cryptid, is that I don't know what version of the film that I saw, but and I know if this gentleman redid it in 4K, and it's very clear.
I believe that was also M.K. Davis that did that.
Okay, well, there's another thing that you can point out on that an old animal, an old mammal is gonna have some battle scars. Is gonna have some kind of, us. We get brown spots and we get moles and all this stuff.
Broken arms and legs.
Yes, and all this stuff. With her, while she's walking, and the way I believe the light hits her fur, you can see like different patches, like missing hair and so. The only thing I can relate that to is rubbing something or just like maybe like old age or it's coming out, but you can clearly see it when you zoom in. You can see like her arm, her side of her leg, and her arm. You see the different patches. There's like hair missing, some hair here, another spot here, and and they're like circular. So that's another clue. Like if they're circular, that means it was, could be something that it was some kind of an illness that it had, or a skin or something, a reaction or some kind of and the other ones were like just like if she was maybe walking through rocks or going through something that constant rubbing of this leg made it look like that.
That and the hair would be different colors in different parts of the body as the sunlight hit it too. So that could also give the impression that there was missing hair.
Mm-hmm.
So
Now, also, like, we're cat lovers. I'm a cat lover.
mm-hmm.
I've had my Pixie when when she's not pregnant. Underneath her, she has a full full hair. And when it's time, just like the horses, when they're gonna give their foal, it's they start the teeth start it look different.
Mm-hmm.
Once the kittens clasp on to the mother cat, you have that absence of the hair. So that's another thing that you have to also look at, on these on this female.
Mm-hmm.
Those are just clues that you have to look at that.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a film out there like the P&G film that has been scrutinized, gone over with a fine-tooth comb, magnified, looked at from every possible angle. There isn't another film out there like it. And yet today, no one can come up with a decent, not copy, but it's like they can't do a better job than that film. It has got to be the best overall image of a Bigfoot type creature ever caught. And with so many people looking at it, nobody has ever been able to come out and say definitively it's a fake. Mm-hmm. Which I've talked to Bob Gimlin. He swears that as far as he's concerned, it was the real deal. It's funny why he was with Roger Paterson to begin with. Roger Paterson wanted to film a Bigfoot because he wanted to make some money. He was not exactly well off financially. And he went to Bob Gimlin and asked him to go along because Bob had a pickup and a horse trailer. And Roger Paterson needed a pickup and a horse trailer to transport his horse to Bluff Creek, where the film was shot. So the only reason Bob was along was because he owned a pickup and a horse trailer. And then they get to the scene. Roger wants to stay. Holy cow, we've just caught definitive proof that Bigfoot is real. He wanted to stay and see if they could catch some more footage. Bob had a job that he had to go to. So he's like, no, we're not staying here any longer. I need to go home so I can get ready to go to work. Then, because it was starting to rain, Bob's pickup was only two-wheel drive. They had to cross a creek, pulling a horse trailer with two horses in it. Bob wanted to get out of there because otherwise they were going to get stuck.
Right.
And he would have had to explain to his wife and his boss why he was late for work Monday. But Roger Paterson, a lot of people accuse him of, well, just about anything in the book. Roger developed cancer, and he was dying from it. He knew his time was coming to an end. Mm-hmm. Instead of spending money trying to find a cure, or maybe him and his wife going someplace and just enjoying the last couple of months of life, Roger spent all of his time and all of his money continuing to look for Bigfoot. He wanted more proof than what he had already captured. And up until his dying day in 1967, he was still looking for Bigfoot. And he was convinced that what he'd seen was real. And I've heard people come out and say, oh yeah, he confessed that it was a fake when he died. Never happened. Yeah. Other people have confessed for him. But Roger Paterson has never come out and said that it was a fake. And Bob Gimlin said that he has no reason to think that it was a fake. So it's got to be the best film ever made of a Bigfoot type creature. And I do have a theory, and I have given my theory freely to a lot of Bigfoot researchers, but it doesn't seem to be catching too much traction, and I'll tell you why. The P&G film was shot with a wind-up camera. There was no battery, no electronics. You had a great big spring, and you'd turn this handle, and it'd put tension on the spring. Then you'd aim the camera, and you'd push a button, and the spring would slowly unwind, and that's what would cause the camera to work. That's called an analog mechanism. No electronics. Today, every single Bigfoot researcher out there is using digital cameras with all kinds of automatic focus and automatic this and automatic that. And it's all run off of infrared lights. My personal theory is that the Bigfoot type creature can see infrared and possibly ultraviolet light. Of course, people are like, that's impossible. How do we know what's possible or impossible for Bigfoot to do if we don't even know really what Bigfoot is?
Correct.
There is a fish that lives at the bottom of the ocean. It's called a black dragonfish. And it can see in infrared. So if a fish living on the bottom of the ocean can see in infrared, why couldn't a Bigfoot type creature possibly see the automatic focus coming from a camera, and it's like, oh shoot, I'm just going to hide behind this tree until that fool goes away, and then I'll come out. So maybe what our Bigfoot researchers actually need to be doing is getting some old analog type cameras out there, and maybe they'll get lucky too. What do you think?
Well, it was shot with an 8mm.
Mm-hmm. But it'll wind up, man.
I believe my father had that. He had one similar to it back in 70, around the same time. I was 2 years old. It was in 72. He has no sound, so and it was color. It's possible. I know about that fish that you're talking about. Because there's what they prey on. They found a way how to. They just stay still, and the fish cannot see them. But that dragonfish can see them with the infrared.
Yeah.
When they turn around, so that's when he charges and gets them.
I just realized I said Roger Patterson died in 1967, and that's when the film was made. He died in 1972. That's why I keep notes.
Yes, all the time.
I can carry on a semi-intelligent conversation, but the dates elude me. And if I don't actually look to my notes and say, oh, film 1967, died 1972, well, I have put my foot in my mouth more than once.
I think what we should also be looking is that since it's we place it very close, this creature, as being related to us as human, Homo sapien. Then, if this creature is out there, its feelings, its reactions are very similar to ours. It was caught off guard, walking in its natural. So what do you do? It's just like somebody's like, just like a deer when it's walking across, and once it knows that it's there, what does it do? It freaks out. It looks at you. We have to see how, in what way does one just simply glance, just to see, and this glance around was fast, because it knew that what was out there, versus something is just looking around. And it looks hesitant to me, the way it's walking. It looks very hesitant and maybe upset. The reason I say why is that it's not walking straight up with its head straight like that. It's walking with its head, a little bit, pointing down. And that's when I think when that happens to normal humans, they're either in deep thought, or there's something on their mind, or they're upset, because usually when people are upset and they're walking, they're not walking straight like this. What do?
It's more of a brooding.
Yeah, they have their head is tilted down, and making some kind of facial, facial expressions. Your body's tightened up, and
Mm-hmm.
this thing has all these characteristics. That's what we have to also look upon, on seeing these more clues, finding more clues, and coming up with a sensible hypothesis, you know, of what was happening during that footage. That I don't know how many seconds of it was.
Like 12, 14.
Mm-hmm.
It, like I said, it has been analyzed, gone over with a fine tooth comb so many times by so many different people. They've actually counted the number of frames that the Bigfoot creature is in, and it's not very many.
So if you ask me, it was it's just when a growling dog walks away from you, it turns its head, and when it turns its head, its face
Mm-hmm.
has like it's very cross, like it's very like a frown or upset or something, So not that I've seen these Bigfoot, but I mean you can tell. You compare it to other people,
Mm-hmm.
it is what it is. And did it have its mouth open? No. Well, if it had its mouth open, what was it doing? Like, but it didn't. It gave us a face to face. How many times did it come face to face with a camera?
Just the one.
Just that one, that turn. That turn. And that turn was,
It's a good thing Bob pulled his rifle out at that moment, because if he hadn't have put a round in the chamber, the creature would have walked away. We would have never had an opportunity to see its face. It's amazing how things like that, little things like that, lead to enormous developments.
Now, it's when its arms were outstretched, when they were walking its stride.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you're in a real hurry, your stride becomes wider.
Oh, yes.
Okay. It was spooked. I think it was spooked, and you can tell because the arm, especially the back arm, it comes all the way back here.
Mm-hmm.
So she was walking quick. I think she wanted to get out of there. Also, it looked. I was upset because it starts just like when a small child.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that. Go to your room. What do they do? Straight beeline, head down, straight line, walking.
She was upset because she hadn't had her hair done. Well, we didn't get to the blue dogs of Texas, which I was hoping to at least get a little footage on. A lot of people are under the impression that the blue dogs are the chupacabras from Puerto Rico, and they say, "Oh yeah, it's the same creature." I don't really think it's the same creature. I think we're talking about two different animals, two different cryptids that just happen to both prey on blood. Phyllis Canyon, who had a chupacabras event on her ranch out near Cuellar, Texas, which is north of Victoria. I've driven by there 100 times, but I've never gone near the town. She did they found a dead creature laying in the road. They call it a blue dog, and she has it mounted in her living room. And a friend of mine, Ken Gerhardt, went out there, and he actually spent the night on her ranch trying to see if they could catch this thing again. But, well, it was him and his partner and a production crew and cameras, and there were a lot of people out there in the dark, so it's not surprising that nothing came near them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that would be something else to go looking for, that if we ever get a chance.
Sure. The chupacabra is very, very interesting because I believe that if there was some kind of, like right now, supposedly China is they're doing some kind of human animal,
Crossbreeding.
crossbreeding.
Oh, actually, it's not even breeding. It's gene splicing.
Yes, that's right. Correct.
Which that's scary because you can put all kinds of things together that way.
So, the way the creature looks, I think if this really occurred in some labs in Puerto Rico or something, they probably missed out that they were working with the genes of a bat.
No.
Because a bat can fly.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the wings on the chupacabras from Puerto Rico they're more visual than utilitarian because they're way too small to support any creature of any substance.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't realize that the first, what I consider the first chupacabra sighting, wasn't in Puerto Rico. It was in Arkansas. They had what they called the killer kangaroo that was running around Hamburg, Arkansas back in 1934.
Wow.
The farmers and the ranchers were beginning to complain because their animals were being found dead, drained of blood. Goats, sheep, small animals like that. And now this is, back in the 30s, and there was nobody that they could turn to for help. So a group got together, a posse,
yes,
and they went looking for the creature. They were chasing it down a fence line, and they said the thing hopped like a kangaroo. It had a large body and a small head. The front legs were just kind of there. It didn't use the front legs at all. And as this group of ranchers and farmers chased the thing, it outpaced them. They couldn't keep up with it. And it finally disappeared off into the south of Arkansas, heading towards the Louisiana border. But like I said, that was 1934 that this report came out, and
wow,
very, very few people ever seemed to even talk about it. Someday I got to get to Hamburg, Arkansas, and see if I can find the newspaper articles, because there were this didn't take place one or two nights. This was over several weeks that they were having this problem.
Okay.
It would make an interesting endeavor, but there's only so many hours in the week that I can do these things, and
I hear you. Yeah.
I thought when I retired I would have all the time in the world to do all the things that I wanted to do, and I have less time now than when I was working for a living. Anything you'd like to add to the show before we call it a night?
Currently, right now, I'm trying to work on a book on the research I've been doing. It pertains to the migration of the supposed migration of the Aztec Indians when they were supposedly in northern Mexico, or just to the north, and the place where they come from, it's through myth and legend, it's called Aztlan. It's Aztlan, and it has two meanings: the place of whiteness and the place of heron, like heron, the bird. I'm still working on this research. I've done some real significant strides which I found very interesting. I've came across two separate petroglyphs that look very similar. But when I show them to people, like, well, yeah, this is this and this is this, it's like the same thing, it's just drawn differently. And they tell me, like, where's this at? Well, this one's over here in the United States, and this one's over here in Mexico. And you're talking about approximately 1,000 miles away from each other.
A lot of people assume that the Aztecs started in Mexico. They never stop to think, well, where did they come from before that? Right.
So there's been theories on where the actual locality of the Aztlan's at. And as soon as I get something published, I will gladly
Yes.
come over here and get on your show and do the groundbreaking
Fantastic.
right here with you. And I know that you've given me pointers and some tips on the subject. So I'm very grateful.
Reminds me of a book that I'm still reading. Can't think of the guy's name off the top of my head, so I'm not going to go into it. But he said that it takes him about a week to read a book, and so he figured he could write one in about that time, and so he did. And it's like, that's quite an accomplishment. People don't realize how long it takes to write a book. It takes years sometimes. So, well, hope you get your book written soon, and we'll have you on the show to talk about it then.
Awesome. Thank you.
Until next time, this is Chris James with Joe Rogerio here at the studio for Strange Things. Until next Saturday.
Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man, the same murder three? Strange things that happen here, how stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree?